Another example that trips most men up is the self-control test. This is when she tries to trigger you on purpose, not to fight, but to see if you can stay composed under pressure, because she knows that a man who cannot control himself cannot protect her. If she's broken inside, she'll chase attention outside. When a woman has been abandoned or betrayed or abused, her body becomes her coping mechanism, not out of desire, but out of emptiness. Every compliment, every DM, every reaction, none of those are interesting to her. It's just dopamine hitting a wounded ego. She can't sit with silence, and she can't sit with peace, because peace forces her to face herself, and she's been running from that for years. Modern women have changed drastically. We have had to adapt with this mindset, and I need you to listen closely. Modern women aren't harder to understand. They are harder to love, because the world changed their minds faster than men learned the psychology. And this is where communities like this come into play. The hard truth is that women today do not choose you based on effort. They choose based on emotional stimulation. If you don't create emotional impact, you don't exist. Attention is the new currency, and she's rich. Every app, every DM, every like inflates her own value in her mind while lowering her patience in reality. And because of this, she doesn't bond slowly. She only bonds in extreme highs and lows. She chases intensity and not consistency. And this is why stable men get overlooked. Her freedom made her powerful, her options made her careless, and her independence made her confused about what she actually wants. Modern women are harder to love because they feel more than they understand, and they expect a lot more than they actually offer. She's chasing a version of herself that doesn't even exist yet. Gentlemen, you cannot love a modern woman blindly. For that, you need emotional intelligence, boundaries and discipline, detachment and masculine direction. Because without these in place, you will drown in her chaos. Most men today fail because they approach modern dating with old rules. You're trying to win her over with loyalty in a world where women punish it. If you want a woman today, you have got to understand this. Her behavior is shaped by trauma, social media, options, fear, ego, and subconscious tests she doesn't even realize she's running. If you don't understand that, you're entering a battlefield both blind and unarmed. So if you want to take off that blindfold and be equipped with the right tools to thrive in today's dating market, head over to datingwisdom.net. Link in description and or bio. Because a woman who gives her body to anybody will take everything from you and feel absolutely nothing. She has no value for herself, so why would she value you? If she lets every man in her bed, she lets every man in her mind. And you're about to inherit every insecurity and every emotional crack those men left behind. She ain't a free spirit, guys. She's emotionally unstable and using intimacy like a band-aid to cover up the wound she refuses to heal. And you become her temporary escape. Sleeping with a woman who sleeps with everyone isn't pleasure. It's contamination. You're taking on her past, her impulses, her addictions, and her chaos. Because if she doesn't respect her own body, then she'll never respect your energy, your time, your loyalty, or her future. Her lifestyle has already told you what her standards are, but you ignored them. A woman who can never say no to men can never say yes to one man. There's just no loyalty in her psychology, just an insatiable hunger for attention. We got a lot of men out here thinking they're winning by smashing these types of girls. Nah, player, you're losing your discipline, your emotional clarity, your standards, and your ability to bond. And men who understand this eventually grow out of the player phase. Because you want to know what's worse than losing a good woman? Getting attached to a woman who belongs to everyone and no one at the same time. You'll end up suffering trying to claim for yourself what every man has already had for free. Gentlemen, your future is way too valuable to be tied to someone who treats intimacy like a hobby and loyalty like an option. So if you want to learn how to choose wisely, get your hands on my 5-part 7-hour audio course, How to Build a Quality Woman from the Ground Up, exclusively on datingwisdom.net. Link in description and or bio. Because women will test you in ways you don't even notice. And these aren't attitude tests. These are instinct tests. So one example is the emotional endurance test. She'll tell you something disturbing or dark or painful or twisted. Then she sits back to see if you'll crack. And if you flinch or if you judge or if you get uncomfortable, she knows that you're not built for her reality. Another example is the micro disrespect test. Not a big disrespect, just a tiny one. Her tone, maybe a delay, a subtle mock. She wants to see if you'll catch the small things. Because the man who ignores small red flags always gets destroyed by the big ones. Another example is the future fake trap. What she'll do is she'll bring up future scenarios semi-casually. Would you travel with your girl? Would you allow this if you had a wife? She's checking your leadership vision, not your plans. Another example that trips most men up is the self-control test. This is when she tries to trigger you on purpose, not to fight, but to see if you can stay composed under pressure. Because she knows that a man who cannot control himself cannot protect her. Another one that comes to mind is the social calibration test. She observes how you act with waiters, kids, strangers, and men larger than you. What she's doing here is she's testing to see if your confidence is real or just a performance. Another test that separates the men from the boys is the removal test. This is when she stops giving you affection, presence, or soft. Not because she's done, but because she wants to see if your behavior depended on her attention. That's the test that breaks 95% of men. Another important test is the loyalty versus self-respect test. She does something mildly unacceptable. Not cheating, but close enough to get your attention. She wants to see if you'll leave or stay because you're afraid of losing her. Staying means she loses respect. Leaving means she gains respect. Another test that comes to mind is the can you lead me out of my chaos test. And yeah, I know I just made that up, but listen carefully. What she'll do here is she'll give you a complicated emotional situation with no solution. She doesn't do this to dump on you. No, she does this to see how your mind works, how you strategize, how you stabilize. She understands that leadership is revealed in uncertainty. In the end, guys, female tests aren't always about ego. Sometimes they really are about survival. She wants and needs to know, can this man handle my reality without collapsing? Most men can't. But if you think passing her tests is enough, you're already behind the 8 ball, my guy. Because women don't just test. They communicate through signals, patterns, shifts, trauma responses, validation triggers, emotional reactivity, and silent withdrawals that destroy unprepared men. My entire catalogs of books and courses explains their whole psychology step by step so that you guys can stop guessing and start understanding. And you can get this wisdom at datingwisdom.net. Link in description. And damaged women aren't free-spirited, guys. They're validation dependent. If she's broken inside, she'll chase attention outside. When a woman has been abandoned or betrayed or abused, her body becomes her coping mechanism. Not out of desire, but out of emptiness. Every compliment, every DM, every reaction, none of those are interesting to her. It's just dopamine hitting a wounded ego. She can't sit with silence, and she can't sit with peace, because peace forces her to face herself, and she's been running from that for years. You think she loves you, but she loves the version of herself she becomes around you. And that's a big difference, guys. Because the instant you're not there, she seeks new attention. Not because she wants another man, but because the validation keeps her from collapsing. And the hard truth is that you cannot fill a void she refuses to confront. You cannot repair trauma that she denies. And the more you try to save her, the more she drains you. You cannot fix her, because broken women cannot be fixed. Stop bleeding for women who bleed on everyone else they meet. So it's very important for men to understand that a man's biggest losses never come from the world. They come from the woman he chose blindly. And if you want to avoid emotional chaos, financial traps, and years of regret, get over to datingwisdom.net. Because men who understand female patterns avoid 99% of the damage. Be one of those men. Get your hands on my books.